Hello everyone, welcome to Best Recipes with Sharon. So let me show you how to make homemade chicken fettuccine alfredo. So the recipe I'm showing you today is my version of how to make this. It has a rich and creamy Alfredo sauce that's completely homemade. And then you use the fettuccine noodles and you top it off with a delicious juicy herb and spiced chicken. And without any further ado, let's get right to making the recipe. So we'll need some fettuccine noodles and a large pot of boiling water. And place it on the stove and turn your heat on high, then add a little bit of salt to your water. And I add about a teaspoon of kosher salt. Using a small kitchen scale, weigh your fettuccine noodles. And you'll need about 12 ounces of these. And if you don't have a small kitchen scale, it's a good handful, about this much. And sometimes it's hard to guesstimate when it comes to pasta, so having a small kitchen scale is really helpful. And you place your pasta into the boiling water and make sure that all of your pasta is submersed. Then I pour about a tablespoon of olive oil in it to help keep the pasta from sticking together or sticking to the bottom of the pot. Stir it in until it's well combined and let it continue to cook according to the package directions. And that's probably about 10 minutes until it reaches al dente. And be careful not to overcook them. Drain your noodles and be sure to save about a cup of the pasta water. It's great for using to thin your pasta if your sauce becomes a little too thick. Now set this aside and you can actually cover it to make sure it doesn't dry out until you're ready to use it. Now on to making the chicken. We start by using 2 large chicken breasts and cut them in half. So this will help to make them cook a little bit quicker and your meat will be nice and tender. And you'll want them about a half to 1 inch thick. Place your chicken on parchment paper on a cookie sheet. Brush olive oil on each side of the chicken pieces. This will help your chicken to brown up nicely, but it will also help keep it from sticking to the pan. And it also helps to keep your spices sticking to the chicken. And it also adds a little bit of flavor, of course. Now let's put together a little spice concoction to put on top of our meat. Take a small bowl, add 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. Then add 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of oregano, then half a teaspoon of black pepper, and also half a teaspoon of salt. Now a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. And mix these spices all together until they're well combined. Now I just take the spices and sprinkle them over the top of these pieces for this recipe. Sometimes I do both sides of the chicken, but for this recipe I only do one side because we don't want it to overpower in the recipe. We want the taste of the Alfredo sauce to come through quite nicely. And this spiced chicken will be a really nice complement on top of this dish. Place your chicken in a preheated oven of 425 degrees. Bake it for between 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how juicy you like your chicken and or how well done. Alright, so let's go on to making this beautiful, rich and creamy Alfredo sauce. And there's nothing like having that homemade. So we'll start by adding 1 cup of butter to a large frying pan. And turn your heat on medium-high and let that butter melt. And then you add 3 cloves of garlic that's been crushed and finely chopped. And you let the butter melt but don't let it brown. And then you saute the garlic in this butter until the garlic turns fragrant, and that will take maybe a minute or 2. Next we'll add 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. Then add 1 tablespoon of dried parsley. and half a teaspoon of black pepper. Then I add 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. I just want to enhance the flavor and not add any heat. Then I add another flavor enhancer, 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg. Stir this in until all the ingredients are well combined. And continue to let it simmer over medium heat. Now add 1 cup of heavy cream. And stir this in rather quickly to make sure it's well combined as well. And it's starting to look more like a sauce now. Okay, so now we'll need some fresh Parmesan. And you take and grate it as fine as you can. And you'll need about 1 cup of this to add to your sauce. This recipe is easy to remember because it's 1 cup of butter, 1 cup of cream, and 1 cup of Parmesan cheese. And you add that cheese slowly and mix it in so that it doesn't lump. And you let each addition melt before adding a little bit more. And I use a generous cup of the Parmesan cheese. And this would be when you would do a taste test. Alright, so this sauce is good to go. We're ready to add the pasta. Using your tongs, add some fettuccine noodles a little bit at a time. Mix that in until the sauce covers the noodles. Then add a little bit more noodles and do the same. If you like your dish to be a little bit more saucy, then you don't have to add all the noodles. You add it until it's the desired consistency that you would like it to be. And that way it turns out perfect every time. Continue with that over the heat just until it's heated through. So this recipe makes enough for about 4 servings. So it's ready to go ahead and plate this up. So then you use generous slices of chicken to top off your dish. Now your family and friends will rave about your chicken Alfredo, made from scratch. So go ahead, give it a try. It's really not hard to make. And you can complete it off with some toasted garlic bread. I hope you make and enjoy this dish. And until next time, happy eating.